listening to the Evolvement podcast with your boy, Nye, where cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and our financial future are the hot topics.
That is the future.
Thank you for tuning in. And now, get ready. We are going live in 3, 2, 1.
What is going on, everybody? What is going on? It is your boy, Nye, and welcome to another episode of Evolvement, the podcast where we talk about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and the future of our financial systems. Shout out to our first sponsors, Casper Labs. Casper Labs is building a fully decentralized blockchain infrastructure that really focuses on high performance without compromising on decentralization or resorting to off-chain settlements. CBC Casper is a proof-of-stake consensus that provides faster, safer, and more energy-efficient decentralized network consensus. As we've seen, one of the major issues with blockchain technology is most blockchains on the market today are not scalable. Without scalability, we face huge issues in terms of onboarding the next billion users into cryptocurrency. CBC Casper aims at solving this issue. If you want to learn more about Casper, head over to casperlabs.io. Today, I'm diving into another conversation around advertising and the previous models, how they're broken, and how content creators are not really being fully compensated for their efforts, compensated for their works, and how that could actually lead to immoral behavior, different things like that, and how this topic needs to switch. So right now I've got Martin on, and Martin is from Rokfin. Martin, welcome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Like I said, man, I'm out in Bulgaria. I can't complain. Or Romania. I was just in Bulgaria. I'm out in Romania, so I can't complain. It's beautiful. But before we get into anything, Martin, can you just give the audience a little introduction of who you are? How did you get started in crypto? And what are you really working on right now?
Absolutely. So I got exposed to blockchain, Bitcoin, just like everyone else, reading the white paper. At the time, I was the CEO and founder of Flow Sports, and so I was running that company, and I saw it like in my peripheral view. I was just kind of like seeing it. One night, just dug into it, and I found that was really interesting. I just had a hunch that there was something that really stuck out to me about it that was applicable for media. I just couldn't put my finger on it. And so then when I left Flow Sports, so I was there for 12 plus years, decided to leave. And when I left and reflected on my next venture, what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to solve a really big problem. And as I looked at how to solve that problem, I discovered more and more that blockchain was the solution to solve it. And so once we put together the how, there was really no going back, and we founded Rokfin.
So what is the problem? Like, what is the issue that you guys are aiming to solve?
Yeah, it's a really astute question, Nye. Right now, content creators are not being rewarded the full value that their content generates on a network. And it's actually much worse, right? So if you think about how a network begins and there's not that much value in a network, but as more and more content creators come onto a network, the value in that network goes up exponentially. And as more and more creators come on, you can actually quantify the value within a network through something like Metcalfe's law, right? Which says the value of the network equals the value of the number of nodes squared, and nodes in our case being the creators. And so as more and more creators come onto the network, there's more value. But as time, even though there's more value in the network, the creators don't own the network. And in fact, as time goes on, they have less and less leverage with the network, because as there's more creators, if one or two leaves, no sweat, right? And so the very network that these creators help build, now they are getting leveraged out of them, and they have to have this. There's this creator's dilemma that happens where they have to decide, hey, how can I I really want to stay connected to my fans. I really want to stay relevant to the community. But I'm getting paid less and less from this network. And so this is what we've called the creator's dilemma. And it's a big problem. And it's a problem because if these creators cannot sustain what they love to do, they just create less and less. And that's a problem for consumers.
I mean, it's super interesting, right? Because I think that we're starting to see kind of what you're talking about happen on different networks and different solutions in terms of, for example, PewDiePie, right? PewDiePie was the largest YouTube creator ever. I'm sure you're very familiar with PewDiePie. You know, he created the whole gaming community all revolves around him. All these 7-year-olds to 13, 15-year-olds obsess over this guy. And he had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of views on YouTube. And now he's starting to look into other decentralized systems, probably for that exact same reason, for that exact same issue that you're talking about. So it's really interesting to hear kind of that there are more solutions being created. And I kind of want to get into some of the subscription models and all of that stuff. But before we do that, how does blockchain address this issue, or how can blockchain solve this issue?
Well, I'll first off say is if we didn't have to use blockchain to solve this problem and we didn't have to use crypto, we wouldn't. Blockchain is an amazing technology, love it, but there's a lot of business constraints around it. It's hard to find people. But the fact is we're using blockchain and cryptocurrency because it's the best technology to solve a really big problem in the media world today. The simplest way to explain the problem and why we use the Ray token is by looking at platforms like YouTube and even Instagram, right? So those two platforms, when they got going, they quickly built up their network. They had very, very little revenues or no revenues at all. And they sold, in YouTube's case, they sold to Google for about 1.6 billion, Instagram to Facebook for about $1 billion. In both of those scenarios, even they weren't sold because of their revenue. They were sold because of the value of their network. Now, a key component, the key creator within that network was the content creators, the people on their network. But they didn't get a piece of that transaction. They didn't get to participate in that upside, even though without them, there is no network. Right. And so what the Ray token enables is for content creators on Rokfin to participate in the value of the network in an open and transparent way. And so we use the Ray token to measure the economic input that each creator brings to the platform through customer acquisition and customer retention based on their content contributions.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting because I could see that there is a value proposition there, and even in other conversations I've been having recently, we talked a little bit about this before the call, but in other conversation I've been having recently, it's not only that the content creators that are being abused, but the people that are actually utilizing the platform, such as YouTube, Instagram, et cetera, they're also being abused, and they're being abused by intrusive advertising and problems like this. So it seems that there are multiple issues across the board. It seems that people are becoming more and more aware of these issues, especially issues with current social media and advertising kind of being intrusive on privacy. It's a really major issue as of recent. But my major question is, and honestly, it's a major, just like a red flag to me, is the fact that we have these platforms that have all of these users that are getting hundreds of millions of views a day, if not more. And how are we ever going to bring people from, for example, a YouTube onto a decentralized version? How are we going to incentivize people and get people to understand the necessity to use these new platforms rather than continue with the platforms that are being used? Especially content creators. How do we convince content creators to move over to something like this?
Well, that's what blockchain is really good at. I mean, it provides financial utility to help bootstrap networks. Andreessen and Horowitz is a great slide deck to review around that. But blockchain does that really well. And so we take a subscription model. There's no way we're going to compete with advertising around with Google or Facebook for that matter. Their networks are so large. You can micro-target a whole host of people based on so many different factors. and the value that they bring to advertisers is really unparalleled. And so, from our perspective, it's really business suicide to try and compete with something like that. So from a business perspective, kind of stripping out the whole moral component that you mentioned. From a business perspective, we don't think there's business viability in terms of going the advertising route. Our approach is subscription. We love subscription. The subscription model is tried and true. In media, the last 40 years have been built around subscription. In the digital age, Netflix has really proven out the model nicely. Hulu's done a great job, Spotify, Apple Music. So the subscription model works. And it works around content. And from our perspective, it's better for creators too. When a creator has to think about advertisers, a creator is most powerful when they can create content that gets to the truth of something. But we often find that the truth is often controversial. And what do advertisers fear more than anything is controversy. And so what happens is creators end up starting to hedge. They hedge little things. Oh, well, we can't say that. You can't do that. Well, we can't say that. And so all of a sudden, their creativity starts to suffer around that. And what happens when their creativity suffers? Well, they don't create as great a content. And when they don't create as great a content, not as many consumers are excited about it. And so it just becomes this vicious cycle for creators that we don't think it's a great model for them. The subscription from a business perspective works great. It's a recurring model, it's sustainable, and it's proven. That's why we use a subscription model combined with blockchain. And we are finding that creators are starting to get it, and they're coming over at an accelerated pace.
What is the main reason that these creators are saying that they're coming over at an accelerated pace? Like, what is inspiring them to do so? Is it the simplicity of use? Is it the fact that the subscription model is working better than their current model? What is it for these creators that you've noticed?
Man, creators are coming over because they're frustrated. They're frustrated that when they create great content, they don't receive the return on the time and energy invested that they deserve. Or we find out from creators that they're just worried. They're going to be cut off from their main source of revenue based on opaque rules that are arbitrarily enforced. Or they're just annoyed that they have to create content full-time tailored to an algorithm in order to grow or even just maintain their audience. So that's what we're seeing in the market around content creators.
I mean, I think that's interesting, man. I think it's interesting. I think it's very interesting that you chose a subscription model, specifically because, we've seen multiple things move into subscription models. We went from seeing, for example, iTunes, where you would go and you would buy an album and you'd be able to listen to it forever, move into the subscription model of Spotify, where Spotify is pretty much the lead in terms of music streaming now. It's the main way that the majority of the population listens to music, is via streaming through Spotify. And we've seen the same thing in terms of television moving into Netflix and the subscription model and things like that. Can you share a little bit about your opinion on why these forms of content delivery are moving into subscription models and what this means for the future of content?
Subscription is just a better experience. I mean, ultimately, they used to say content's king. Experience is king, and content is a part of experience. But interruptive advertising, people just have less. They just have they're not willing to take it. I mean, it's their time and energy, and most people's time is worth more than that. And the experience is very subpar. So for all the reasons from a creator perspective, I don't think advertising is optimal, but from the consumer perspective, I don't think advertising is optimal. And so that's why we chose advertising. That's why I think you're going to find more and more people just continue to gravitate towards that model.
Yeah, it's super interesting to me, man. It's really interesting to me, especially because, I mean, for example, when I'm on YouTube, I watch a video or something like that, and it always plays the little 30-second ad in the very beginning. I can skip it after 5 seconds, and every single time I skip it. Now, I'm always really curious to learn and to see how annoyed people get at those things, especially as a marketer myself, and someone who pretty much lives this on a daily basis. I'm always curious to see how people react to these sort of things. For me personally, most of the time I'm like, okay, I'll wait the 5 seconds and click the skip button. But then at the same time, the main reason that people have moved over to Netflix, besides original content, is the fact that there is no advertising. And it's not like this is just a small amount of people. It's a very large amount of people. So, man, I'm really interested in this being a potential of a way that content creators, that anybody can like really monetize in a different way.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say just a point there. I mean, the advertising model is not going to go away, and there'll probably always be room for it. And Google has an amazing business, right? A little too amazing because they extract so much from the content creators. They obscure the data. They don't let the content creators experience in the value that their content generates for the network. They hide that data as much as possible, and you can see that. They rarely discuss. They obscure all the data on the earnings calls around YouTube, right? So it's clear why they do it. They're able to do that because of the size of the network and how much leverage they have over creators who want to access the network that they help build to stay connected to their fans, their future customers, and to stay quote unquote relevant. That being said, the advertising model around Facebook and Google. I mean, you can't argue with it. I mean, there's a reason why those companies have a market cap, between $500 billion to $1 trillion at any one time, and it works for advertisers because they can select, hey, I'm looking for this demo at this thing, at this scale, and they can reach who they want to reach. But that being said, we don't think it's a model that works for creators in a really great way. And we don't think it's ultimately the best experience model. And it's not a model that we chose because we're intent on doing it different. And that's what we're excited about.
I like that. And in terms of the type of content that's on your platform, is this like all video content? Is this podcasts? Like what kind of content can content creators upload and share with the community via your platform?
Yeah, so we're pretty content agnostic. We do video and we do podcasts right now, and we have some big announcements coming up here in the next 15 or so days.
Very cool, very cool. And if I'm a content creator, which I am, and I wanted to post my podcast on your platform, how do I get paid? How does that work? So people sign up for your site for $9 a month, I believe is what you said. And how would I get paid out of that process?
Yeah, solid question. So the process goes like this. We'll take it step by step. You post content, you put premium, you market it. Someone comes to the site. When someone comes, they see the content, they go through a funnel, they put in their credit card, $9.99 to access content. Now, when they get you, they get everybody, right? So they get you and everybody else on the platform. In the background, when their credit card goes through, what Rokfin does is we burn $9.99 worth of Ray token. So if Ray token's trading at 50 cents, we'll burn about 20 tokens for that subscription. And that's our way of transmitting value to the network. Okay. And so that customer is now able to access your content and then also any other content creators that he loves on the platform. He's able to access all of their premium content as well. After when we do about a day's worth of work on the network. So we do a rolling average. So when a day's worth of work hits the Ray ecosystem, it does a mint, and it mints 10,000 Ray tokens and distributes them to the creators that helped with customer acquisition and customer retention on the network. And so that will get distributed to you based on a customer acquisition algorithm that we said, hey, this person came on and consumed Nye's content, and so then now you get distributed a portion of those 10,000 tokens. And Rokfin therefore has an inherent need to continue to own tokens because we have to get access to the content, we have to be able to burn for every customer that comes on. So as more and more customers come on, we have a bigger and bigger appetite for Ray tokens.
Okay, and so do I get paid proportionally to other content creators in terms of the percentage of time or content that was consumed?
Yeah, so in a direct consumer subscription business, there's two forms of work that can be done, and that's customer acquisition and customer retention, right? And so what we measure is each piece of content, how well it does for those two components. So in the first months of a customer's life cycle, the vast majority of that customer's value goes to customer acquisition. But as time goes on and you start, that customer's been around for a year or two, the vast majority of value for that particular customer goes to customer retention, while we continue to reward for the original person that brought on that customer in the form of customer acquisition. So we have this royalty curve that we follow, this royalty algorithm that divides customer acquisition and customer retention up. And then we just track those users to say, okay, how much of whose content they're consuming, and we distribute the royalties proportionally to the value contributed to the network. So you asked, is it proportional? Yes, in the form of it's proportional to the value you contributed to the network during that minting period.
Okay, cool. That totally makes sense. That's interesting. Awesome, man. I like it. I think it's really interesting, and I think it's really interesting. I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about what you guys got going on. Can you share with people where they can learn more about Rokfin and where content creators can participate or where listeners can contribute?
Yeah, so you can go to our media platform, Rokfin, ROKFIN.com. You can also visit raytoken.org, as well as Telegram, Twitter, on both of those as well. So the Rokfin on Twitter, and on Telegram, it's the Ray token. And if any creators are listening, you can also email us at creators@rokfin.com.
I love it. I love it, man. No, I'm super interested. I'm gonna check it out a little bit more. I'm interested to learn more. I really think that the subscription model is really the future for how people are gonna get paid. I think there's gonna have to be advertising is being forced to evolve right now, which pretty much leads content creation to be forced to be evolved as well in the same period. So I like it, man. I like you guys are innovating and think of something different and new.
Great, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me on.
This has been the Evolvement Podcast with your boy, Nye. Thanks for tuning in. Head over to evolvement.io for updates and join us next week for an all-new episode. Peace.